Right, we're now live. Ooh. If anybody's sneaking in and listening, then hope you enjoy it. But this is going to be very rough. Okay. Okay. So get the soundboard on. 3, 2, 1. And hello, everybody. This is TeknoCratik, the podcast about the way we use our technology. You may notice it's slightly different this time. If all goes well, you'll hopefully have access to a video version of the show, because we are actually using Google Hangouts to do a YouTube broadcast that will be hopefully tarted up nicely and released on the TeknoCratik YouTube channel. So if you're already watching us in the future, hi.
Hello.
With me, as normal, there's Tim. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
And I don't know if anybody's ready for this, Tim, but to see what we look like on live after a hard. Well, I've had a hard day. It's morning over there for you, isn't it? Still, or at lunchtime?
Yeah, just past lunchtime. So, and I'm still kind of.
Yeah, and I've been told that I've got a great face for radio, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing now. But anyway, so we'll just quickly comment on what we're doing. We've talked about this last year before Christmas, floating around the idea of possibly doing a video version of the show. Now, from what I remember, what we talked about, I think the main reason for this was to basically be able to expand how we do stuff, like be able to, I know we can, with the audio we can put clips in, but maybe do some video demonstrations of what we're doing here and things like that, if I remember correctly. Is that what you recall, Tim?
Yeah, and we can also, show our gadgets if we ever want to review something and actually give you a idea of what it is. So
yeah,
that should be cool too.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the idea. Obviously, you'll have to bear with us because I don't know about you. I've never done a video show before or anything. So, and it's going to be probably going to be pretty rough for the first few if we can keep this momentum going. But it's one of those things that we wanted to try. So when worst comes to us, we'll just give you the audio and we won't show our faces. So, so what you've been up to, Tim? We've had, I think it was just before Christmas we released the last show. So did you have a nice Christmas break and everything?
Yeah, I had a great Christmas break. Got to get together with the family here in Cornelius, and we spent the day just hanging out and eating good food and just catching up on what everyone's been up to, aunts, uncles, friends of ours in Portland. So it was a great Christmas. What else did we do? New Year's Eve was a little more boring and laid back, but I think we had a good overall time this holiday. How about you?
Yeah, it was all right. We quiet one. The way I like it. I'm not a big party animal, at least not anymore. I never was really, to be honest. But yeah, nice little family Christmas and New Year was fairly quiet and everything. Yeah, and it was just basically after the New Year that all hell broke loose over here. We'll talk about that in a bit, because we would have had the show out probably a little bit earlier than this after the New Year, but we had a little bit of a mishap that I'll go on about in a bit. What else have you been up to, Tim? I know last time we talked, we talked a little bit about Chromebooks and Linux, which we tend to do a lot anyway. So I believe you've moved on a little bit from there.
Yeah, so I did purchase a Chromebook for with Christmas money I had saved up and stuff like that. And I also got a Chromecast as a Christmas present. So I think we'll also talk a little bit about that. I haven't had as much testing with it, but we'll talk about the Chromebook too. I think we can review it. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on it to give my thoughts. And otherwise, I've been working on my Linux install on both machines, both my main and my side machine. The main machine now has Aurora installed, as per Dan's suggestion. Was I running SolidDK when we last talked?
Linux Mint, I think.
Oh, was it Mint? Okay, so it was Mint when I was on that. I had some issues with Mint and decided I should just try something that isn't Debian-based to see if it's just not a hardware problem. So Aurora is working just fine. Aurora is a spin-off of Fedora that's designed to be user-friendly and just you can install it out of the box and not have to worry about installing MP3 plugins or drivers or whatnot. And it's been really good. I have the Cinnamon version installed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about all of that in a bit then, if you want.
And the side machine's running Arch.
Oh yeah, that'll be an interesting one as well. So I'd like to hear how you've got on with that. Yeah, so yeah, you may notice I've changed up a little bit here, and part of the reason is because just after New Year, I decided to have a bit of a tidy up, and I found a USB hub that I had lying around that I used before. I think I used it on my Raspberry Pi, and I thought, oh, this might be quite handy to use, because you can never have too many USB ports. And I plugged it into my machine, and actually I've got a little can't see it here because it's just in front of the monitor here, a little USB sound card, because I was going to use that with my old mixer, and I'll get to that, to sort of expand the capability of it a little bit, give it a bit more flexibility. And I read in the reviews on Amazon that you can get a slight whine sometimes with it, and that might be why we're getting a little whine on this recording. But if you plug it into a powered USB hub, it eliminates it. So I found what I thought was the power supply to this USB hub, and I'm not sure if it was or not. That might be the problem. Plugged it all into my computer, everything went off. I'm thinking, what's this strange? And then, well, actually, I didn't realize it was the hub at first. I thought that my power supply had gone kaput. I kept trying it back, turn it back on, everything. Nothing happened. So then I took everything apart, took the power supply out, because I could smell. Sometimes you can smell electronics burning a little bit. Mm-hmm. I smelt that, and I thought, oh, maybe it's overheated. And I opened it up. It was full. It was caked in dirt and stuff. So I cleaned it, put it all back together, everything back together. It came on. Oh, okay. But then it wasn't responding very well. My keyboard didn't work, and I couldn't get into the BIOS or anything like that. And then I plugged the hub back in, and it went off. I'm thinking, so it's the hub. To cut a long story short, basically the USB interface basically blew up, and it took with it my two keyboards, because I didn't realize that that's what happened. I plugged a different keyboard I thought to test to test it again. I blew two keyboards, a mouse. It blew my Xbox 360 USB controller. It blew my mixer. My mixer now just works as an analog mixer. It doesn't work via USB interface. What else did it break? The hub itself doesn't work. The only thing that survived was, well, my printers survived. I suppose they're a little bit hardier, and the webcam that I'm using right now, that survived. Don't ask me why that survived, but it did. And also I should say the most important thing, obviously the power supply became very unstable, and the motherboard, the whole USB system on the motherboard just refused to work. Nothing USB would work with it, you know. And I tried, and I tested it and with other things that did work on other machines, and it was definitely all gone. So to cut a long story short, I basically had to repurchase everything, so I had to upgrade because I had not much choice. I could have got some replacement parts, but by the time I spent the money on that, a little bit more money, I could have got a decent upgrade. So I've ended up upgrading. Ended up with a Core i5 4570K, I think it is. I kept my RAM. My RAM was fine. New motherboard. Got a nice Intel motherboard with integrated HD graphics, which worked pretty well. And a new mixer, which I got a fairly good deal on, a Behringer mixer. And like I was saying before we started recording, it's a little bit different. It doesn't work. The quality of it is fantastic. The sound quality is great, but it doesn't work quite the same way as my old one. So I've had a bit of a learning curve with that. And then last week, I was using a second PC for other stuff like my artwork stuff and the ones that the kids tend to use for their schoolwork. And last week that decided to stop working. It just would not. It was some sort of. I thought it was the graphics card, and I swapped the graphics card, and I was getting some power issues with it, and I thought, oh, this is a really old, ancient AMD 64, or I think it was a Athlon 64x2 or something like that. It was an ancient machine, but by today's standards, I thought there's no point struggling with this, so I retired it. And basically, now I'm running a triple boot system on this machine. So what I've done is I got an and I also got an SSD, and so I'm running Ubuntu, vanilla Ubuntu with Unity. Believe it or not, it's actually not too bad. I've always not given it enough of a chance, but what I've basically done is customized it as much as I can. Changed it up a little bit. And so it's not too bad. It's very, very, very usable. I'm running that for production work like podcasting and for artwork and stuff like that. Obviously, for the fast USB, I've got that on the brain. SSD. It does wonders for everything. I couldn't, I don't know why I didn't go sooner to an SSD. It's brilliant. But then I've also got a Ubuntu installation which I'm going to use for some gaming, because I didn't want to mix it. It sounds silly, but I didn't want to mix the two together, because I'd have to. When you install Steam, it won't let you install games on a separate partition. As far as I can tell, I did look at it, and apparently it does want to install it in your home partition. Now I could move my home partition to a separate drive, which I did do at first, but it sort of slowed things down a bit, slightly, and it made the system a bit noisier. So I thought I'm going to just install another distro or another instance of Ubuntu on another drive and use that for the gaming side, because it makes no difference, and then I can keep it a bit cleaner. And I went for Ubuntu to keep the overhead down a bit, because obviously it's a little bit lightweight. XFC is a bit more lightweight than Unity. And then a third instance of Ubuntu for my wife and kids and that to do work on and school stuff, and So we're doing a triple boot, which is working fine. Another benefit of this is now I'm running dual monitors, which is quite handy, because I can do some stuff on this side, and watch you on this one, and it's pretty good. I've never had dual monitors before. I know you run dual monitors, don't you? There.
Mm-hmm.
They do. It makes a big difference. So yeah, it's every negative has a positive, I suppose. So I've had to spend some money, but everything's running really nicely now, and I'm really happy. So and it's made. I think it's going to make this video stuff more realistic because I've got a machine that can handle it a bit better. I've been testing some capture software and stuff like that, and whereas before I was struggling to get it to work, effectively, it's working really well now. So that's another thing I might be able to do a bit more of, and release some more videos for the YouTube channel and things like that. Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. Losing all that hardware due to a USB issue, that would crush me if that happened to me.
Yeah, well, at least I didn't pour a drink down my PC.
Yeah, I'm never going to live that down.
So, yeah.
As far as the Steam issue, though, did you check? Because it does allow different libraries to install games to. I haven't tried it on Linux. I just know it works pretty well on Windows.
Yeah, obviously the way Windows works is their sort of file system is different. But I mean, I'm sure I read that you can do it on different. I think you can do it on different libraries, but they all live in your home partition. So the only option would be to have separate. It's easy enough to separate your home partition from your root drive. You can just assign it to another hard drive or another partition. Which I did do because I was originally running Elementary OS on this system, and I did it when I did that. But I switched to Ubuntu basically because the system's too new. Because Elementary is based on 12.04, and I've had to update the kernel and the drivers and the Xorg system and everything, and there was a lot of work just to keep a pretty looking desktop. So I thought I'll live with what I've got available, and to be honest, Unity with a little bit of customization isn't that bad. You can turn off all the search, all the online searches and stuff like that, and it's not that bad at all. And I quite like XFCE for a more lightweight system, and that's working quite nicely. So I'm pretty happy with how it's looking now, how it's running. So end of the day, it's working fine. So I'm happy with that.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah. The other thing I've done is I've upgraded my Nexus 7 to KitKat. Well, basically what I did, what I did was I basically put the stock KitKat on there, and then it was okay, but I couldn't live with not rooting it because I was so used to having a rooted system where you can basically do a lot more with it, and it's a little bit easier to use for me anyway for what I want to do. So I thought if I'm going to do that, I may as well look at another ROM, and I ended up with I think it's called Purity ROM, which is I don't know what it's based on. I think it's AOKP or something like that. I don't know, but it works quite nicely. So I'm happy with that at the moment. And KitKat is actually quite nice. It runs very smoothly, and things like that. So. And that's it. That's I was going to say the long and short of it, more long than short. They're just talking about it, but it's been a while since we talked. So, Right. So, what I might do now is, should we look at a couple of little news items, and I will play my little zinger on this soundboard.
Okay.
You can tell we're professionals, can't you now?
Yeah.
So Tim, what's in the news?
So there's one piece of news that just came out, and that's Chrome/Google just launched the developer preview of Chrome apps on Android now. So this was rumored, I think it was late last year that this was going to come, and it seemed, just based off everything Google was doing, that Chrome apps coming to Android was probably inevitable. So it seems they are going to allow developers to to start creating apps for it. And there's really not much more to say other than that, because it is developer preview. You have to go through all the steps in order to access it. I'm not going to go through it because I'm sure it's just going to be a buggy mess, and I don't want to deal with that. I'm not sure what to think about this. To have Chrome apps on on Google's Android platform. I know Firefox does it with their apps, but I'm not sure what to think about Google doing it.
Now, call me cynical, but is this an attempt to wean people off Android and onto Chrome OS on long-term game? You know what I mean? They'll allow some of the apps to come onto the Android platform, eventually move people over, and eventually what might have a Chrome tablet.
I it it kind of seems like they're going to go for a Chrome tablet and probably a Chrome phone at some point. We just every That is my guess, is that they're going to try and push people towards just being everything on Chrome, because Google has ultimate control over Chrome OS. They get to dictate terms. They have a vested interest because Chrome is such a large part of their identity now. That's my guess, is they're going to just say, you don't want Android, you want Chrome everything, and that's kind of why I'm really worried about this, because this is just one more step to putting everything on a controlled platform and not necessarily an open source platform. I know Chrome OS is built on the Chromium project, but it's still under Google's thumb at the end of the day, that this is all running Chrome OS, and this is something I'll talk about in the review later, but it definitely concerns me that this is their path they want to go. They don't want to. One could argue it's enhancing the Android platform by adding more apps to it, but at this point, the Android platform is such a dominant force that if your app is not on there, you're just being silly. It used to be that not having an app on Android, was the norm, like, 3-4 years ago now. But now it is the norm to have an Android app and an iOS app. And now we see Chrome OS, and I don't know. The difference between... I don't know. It's concerning, is all I can really say.
I can see what you're saying. All I'd say to that is Google have been closed sourcing Android for quite a while now. If you look at they keep replacing open source versions of apps with closed source versions of apps, like the Gallery app for the change to the Photos app, and the messaging app is now integrated into Hangouts, and they keep depreciating, or is it deprecating? I can never remember which was the correct term. The older versions, you can still get them on the open source ROMs, like CyanogenMod and all of those guys still use all the open versions, and then you can add the Google apps to that. But Google have been doing this for a while now. And to me, this isn't any different, because at the end of the day, Chrome OS is based off Linux, and all the open side of it has to stay open. They can't change that, but they can add to the top of that. There's nothing to stop them doing that, and they've done that with Android, and they're doing the same thing with Chrome OS. So, but this is why I start thinking this is another long-term plan of theirs, is getting these Chrome apps working on Android. Eventually you'll just get, once you buy a Google, like a Nexus device or anything like that, they'll probably have a lot of these Chrome apps pre-installed, and that is what you will see. And then in a couple of generations time, 2 or 3 generations time, who knows, we might get a Chrome OS phone which won't look much different from Android, because you're already used to using all those apps anyway. And most likely you'll probably have some sort of compatibility layer with Android anyway. I can't imagine it not having something like that, because there are other systems like that, like Sailfish, which the Yolla phone, which that's compatible with Android. If they can do it, then I'm sure Google will do it with Chrome.
Yeah,
it just seems like an obvious thing, and they can control the back end and then still give you a lot of the stuff you still want.
Yeah, and it's hard to say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing in the long run, because even Firefox is doing it. They're looking at pushing tablets this year. They're looking at pushing out Firefox OS as, I know they're going for an open web standard, but still one can't help but be a little bit concerned by just Firefox doing it now and now Chrome's doing it. I guess it's a wait and see thing.
Yeah. I think you've lost my video, I believe. Oh.
Yep.
We'll keep talking just in case, but hopefully that'll come back up at some point. Not sure why that is. Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. What was the next bit of news we had on there? Let me have a look.
So is the Steam streaming beta.
Yeah, I've looked a little bit into this. It's quite interesting. Obviously, it's not. Some places have been saying it's like a revolutionary thing. Like the Linux Action Show guys have made a big deal out of it. Did you get a chance to watch that show?
No, I've been busy dealing with other stuff. It's on my list to listen to or watch this week, but not yet.
No, I've lost your video now. Oh, great. This is working great, isn't it? Oh, you're back now. Why have I... Right, well, sorry about that. I think we had a bit of a loss of connection there. We seem to be back, so hopefully with the magic of editing you won't have seen anything. So yeah, we were talking about the stream. I've written stream on there, so I'm reading that. It's the Steam streaming beta. I'm just saying that I've had a look at a couple of videos of it, and it's pretty impressive. The guys on the Linux Action Show did a demo of it, and there was a few interesting things that came of it. Basically, for everybody who doesn't know, if you have a Steam OS, well, actually you don't even need Steam OS. The Steam clients will eventually, it's in beta at the minute, but eventually you'll be able to stream. If they're on the same LAN, they'll find each other. If you have one on one machine, one on another, it could be Windows, Linux, Windows, whatever. You'll be able to stream games, Steam games, and other applications as well. So it's not just games, but it's mainly designed for games. But they've allowed the ability to stream other applications, which is the interesting thing, as well as obviously the game side. So for the game side, the way it works, you need the server machine, so to speak, will be the most, technically should be the most powerful machine. So, for example, if you've got a Windows box that's got your server there, that needs to be the most powerful machine. The client machine has to be able to receive video from the server at the same resolution, because it basically transmits it at the same resolution. So if your server's at 1080p then or 720p, then your client has to be at the same resolution or capable of receiving it at that resolution. Mm-hmm. And you have your two Steam clients logged in on the two machines, and then you can, whichever machine you're on, they work both ways actually. You can go to your list, and if you've got a game installed on one machine, it'll say, and you're at that machine, it'll say obviously play like it normally does. If you're at the opposite machine, the other machine, it'll say stream, and then you can stream it, and then the game will play on both screens, on both machines at pretty much exactly the same time. And from the demos I've seen, it is pretty much, the latency is very, very, very small, very unnoticeable a lot of the time. And then you can play the game remotely. So it's worth checking out. Use case of it, I'm not sure. I can see some people who perhaps have want to play a game in the living room. They've already got like a media center machine. If you've got a media center machine in your living room, that's more than capable of receiving like a 1080p video signal from anywhere, because that's what you're using it for anyway. So you can plug in your controller into that, and you can play your games in the living room. So that, and the thing about it being cross-platform, means you can do that anyway. It's not just a Linux thing, because when it first came out, we were looking at it from a Linux point of view, and I thought that perhaps in terms of the gaming side anyway, I think that would be a very limited market that would do that, because if you already got a gaming PC, then you would be buying Steam machine to put in your living room, would you really? You'd probably either just you'd probably have a big screen where your gaming system is set up anyway, and you'd sit at a desk or whatever, or armchair, or I don't know, and play there, wouldn't you?
And that's been the whole issue behind the streaming tech. It's really cool and interesting to see, but the use case is questionable at best, because even I'm having a hard time kind of figuring out, how would I use that, because, well, I'm still kind of unsure about it, because I sit here thinking, I'm a PC gamer, okay, great, but I already have a gaming PC. I don't necessarily have any plans of buying a TV. The only reason there is a TV in the house is because it's for my mom. She watches her videos and stuff. I rarely ever use it unless I'm watching a movie with her or my brother or whatever. Other than that, it exists, but I don't care, because I have 2 monitors sitting here that work just fine. So I can watch Netflix or play games or whatever. I mean, I guess if I had a giant 70-inch screen TV, maybe then then it would make sense, but I don't want to invest into a 70-inch screen TV or whatever. I would much rather invest into bigger monitors that I could, play games on a much bigger screen now. So I'm just not sure who they're trying to target with it. You mentioned it, and
yeah, I see from your point of view. I don't think you are the target market for this, because
no,
if for example, I would be more likely to be the target market if I had money, basically, because I have a whole house to, that's mine. That I've got a TV, and I've got a PC. I've got 2 reasonably sized TVs in the house, one in the bedroom, one in the living room, both with PCs attached to them. So, and it might actually be possible to do it with those, because if they had the right operating system on them, they're running actually OpenELEC, which is a XBMC Linux distribution, so they wouldn't have the stuff in them to do it. But that would be ideal if they were running Windows or a full Linux installation. I could put a Steam client on those as well as XBMC, and then I could plug I can't plug my controller in because it's broken. But if I had a controller, I could plug it into either of those machines via USB, and I could stream a game from this box here, which is powerful enough to play a lot of medium range games. Not too graphically intensive games with my integrated graphics, and that might be quite good.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is what they have done is it's not just for games, and that side of it is quite interesting. And I don't think it's the game changer that some of them are saying it's going to be. But the fact that you can add any application to the Steam library as a game, technically. So if you're running Windows, you could put Photoshop on there in your Steam library, and you can stream that to a Linux box, and they were doing it on. I think they did it with Adobe. What is it? A CS4 or whatever it is. I can't remember what it is. It's one of the Adobe graphical packages, and it was running pretty well. They don't run as great as games because it's not designed for that purpose necessarily, but it was very usable, and you can control everything from the remote machine. And what they were saying is, if you're in an office or a small business and you needed some legacy applications such as Windows applications like Office, or you needed Photoshop or something like that, you could, in theory, have one Windows box with one Windows license, and then have 20 PCs running Ubuntu, for example, and then you have access to all the software, and one license, one set of software installations on one box you could use on every machine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's possibly a very, very small niche market for it, but then there is that. And the other thing they mentioned was Netflix works perfectly. So if you want to watch Netflix without messing around installing Pipelight or things like that on Linux, you could just run Chrome through the Steam client and have the Windows version of Chrome running Netflix on your Linux box, and it works great. Well, they actually demoed it. It looked great. It looked pretty good. So,
yeah,
go on.
It's just maybe Valve sees a bigger use that I can't see or you can't see for it. I don't know. It's just the dependency on a box to stream content to another box is just something that a lot of users aren't really going to be into. So you kind of already eliminate a good chunk of the market right there. About the only thing I could see use for it is the NVIDIA Shield project. If it could stream games from my Linux client to my Shield, if I had a Shield, which I don't, then that would actually be really useful. But as it is, that's actually one of the reasons I didn't buy the Shield. It was close to getting it. But when I sat down and realized, look, it's only going to work on Windows if I have the Windows partition running, that was a big major negative against it. The other second problem is Android gaming. They make, there are Android games for it, I'm sure by now, but if they're anything like regular Android games, then they're not worth my time, they're not worth my interest, because Android gaming is still very shallow, especially when I can play other games that just interest me more. So if that kind of fixes that problem with the NVIDIA Shield, that might interest me more, because then I can play, I don't know, some RPG out in the living room for once and not have to sit at my desk all the time, because I have a comfy chair, but I do like to sit somewhere else in the house from time to time. But again, that's very niche use for it, so I'm not convinced yet.
Yeah, it's very early days. I think that's the thing. I think the part of it is just the fact that you can do it. It might be a proof of concept at the minute or whatever, but they didn't have to allow it. So it's there if you need it. If you don't need it, it's coming. These things are coming with. And we don't know how great they're going to be, how successful they're going to be. It's very early days. A lot of people are thinking this is going to change a lot of things, and a lot of people are saying, well, it's just going to be and I'm more inclined to think it's going to be a slow burner. I don't think overnight everybody's going to be buying these machines and switching to Linux, and it's not going to happen. It's going to make it a little bit easier, maybe, especially if you're already a Linux user, and it's increased the amount of games available as well. That's definitely happening. So that's can only be a good thing, but I think it's going to be a slow process. I don't think it's going to be this wow bang thing, that people are saying it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that more. It's going to be another nice little feature, but it's not going to quote unquote change the Linux desktop forever, which was I read that on my Google Plus feed from Linux Action Show, and I'm like, sure. You go with that hyperbole, I will just sit here and just shake my head. I would be very surprised if it did. I really would be. I think there's going to be other things, like I think Chrome OS, I think Linux, Chrome OS, Firefox OS, and all these are going to really encourage more Linux usage than the streaming capabilities of Steam. I think that's more what's going to change the Linux desktop forever, is by making these more open, more cross-platform services available for Linux than streaming apps from my Windows box.
Yeah, I agree. Right, should we have a look at your Chromebook review? I'll just press my button. I like doing that. I enjoy pressing these buttons.
Professional.
Mm.
Okay, so sure, we can go on with the Chromebook review. So I got an Acer C720 Chromebook, and I should have actually pulled up the specs, so I'm going to do that before I actually show it, because I do not have these specs memorized, and anyone who says they do is way nerdier than I am. So I got this as kind of a Christmas present to myself. I've been wanting a laptop for a long time now, especially since I got rid of my iPad. Not having anything, being restricted to your desktop when you want to go visit your grandma or want to go back to Tillamook for whatever reason, not having that is really hard for someone like me. So it was necessary that I get a laptop of some kind, and I'd been looking for about a month and a half for some sort of good laptop, but I just can't find anything that's what I want that's in my price range, because there's this, you have the really thin market of thin laptops that just, they fit in the size of your pocket or whatever. They work pretty well, but they're going to be slow because, they had to pull out all these extra features in order to make the battery life really good. But they're expensive. And then you get to the mid-range market, which is kind of, everything's kind of okay, but the parts are a little bit cheap, and it's a little bit heavier. It's kind of, and you're running Windows on it, so you're already having an issue there. And then you hit that certain point where everything gets really expensive because it's all fast, it's powerful, it's, big screens and everything, and there just wasn't anything that I wanted that fit in my price range. So it's like, okay, let's just try a Chromebook out. And I did this for two main reasons. One, for me, it was extremely cheap because I had an Amazon gift card, actually 2 Amazon gift cards, so just going to say that right now. And considering how cheap they already are, it's like, okay, even if I hate this thing for whatever reason, I have not spent anything close to what I would have like on a really nice Toshiba laptop or something. And 2, it was to see if I could operate without Windows, and if I can operate, like, this is also sort of a business purchase, because I need a laptop when I'm doing house calls for my business. And so if I can use this to do house calls, then it's going to mean that I'm probably going to buy a Linux-only laptop in the future. I'm still undecided on that right now because I haven't done a lot of tech calls to see. And I apologize, my dog is in the backyard and she apparently wants to be let back in, but I'm ignoring her, so you're probably going to hear that. She can suck it up for all I care. So those are the 2 reasons, and I'm hoping number 2 really works out well, because there are some nice Linux laptops that I'm looking at from System 76 that are really interesting, but I don't want to put the money down on them unless I'm convinced I can work just primarily off of them. So, anyway, enough about my reasons why. So the Acer C720 is an 11.6-inch display. It's really thin, it's really light, and for me, it's heavier than an iPad, obviously, but it's it's so light that you're not really going to notice the weight. So that's I for that, as far as portability, it's really nice. Um, it claims about 8.5 hours of active use, and I would say that's actually pretty on point. I haven't actually just done a full day of like only web, like browsing and typing and whatnot, because I don't have 8.5 hours in a day to do just that. But just based off what I've seen and kind of how it's lasted, I would say 8.5 hours is about right. When you're running things like YouTube or Netflix, that gets chopped down to, I'm going to say 6 hours to be conservative. So you lose about 2 hours streaming videos. That's still really good. It comes with the Haswell CPU, which is the major fuss that Acer and Google made about these laptops. And up until recently, it was the only Chromebook that had the Haswell chips. However, I'm going to double check that because I think the Toshiba one has one now. Oh, wait, no, they don't have the specs on it. So probably not, but I'm not sure. So the Toshiba one might have it. I think actually the HP 14 has it. I'm just going to double check that. Should have done this all before now, but oh well. Okay, yeah, so the Chromebook from HP, the 14-incher one, which I actually saw in Costco yesterday, has the Haswell chip inside of it, but up until the 14 came out, the Acer one was the only one to have the Haswell chip, and I'm really impressed with its performance. There's very little lag as far as scrolling through things and opening up websites and just, doing general web browsing. The Haswell chip is just really powerful for what it is. So I think that was definitely a good decision on their part. I'm still not sure why HP didn't go with it on their smaller Chromebooks that they released last year, but there you go. The memory is probably, so as far as hardware-wise, I would say the memory is actually the biggest issue. It's 2 gigabytes actually. Acer did have a 4 gigabyte RAM version, but for some reason it wasn't available when I was looking around, and the only version they had available was the cheaper 2 gigabyte version, which I figured, okay, they're doing their desktop because they now have an all-in-one Chromebook. Well, actually just Chrome OS device, I suppose. So I figured, well, let's just see if 2 gigabytes is actually usable to, browse the web, and it's okay, but I think 2 gigabytes is skimping way too much on RAM, especially when you start opening up Google Plus, opening up Facebook, opening up WordPress, opening up Google Play. You open up all these really heavy, intensive apps web pages, and on their own it's fine, but when you start getting up to more like 8 to 10 tabs, things start to slow down appreciably, and you'll notice when you switch between tabs, they'll have to refresh at times. 10 is probably about the limit of your tabs that you can have open at any time, but if you go beyond that, expect the device to really start to slow down. And I guess it becomes a question of, do you really need 20 tablets or tabs open on a 11-inch screen? I don't know. I mean, what are you really using the Chromebook for that requires that many tabs open and that many things going? But for those who are more power users, it's something to keep in mind, is that the RAM being that small is really restrictive. But if you keep it down to more like 5 tabs, you're not really going to notice the issues with it. What else? So, yeah, I guess I can go ahead and just show it off now. As you can see, it's not really that big. You can hold it in 2 hands. Trying to figure out. So the Acer one, it does have fans. I know some of the Chromebooks don't. This one does. And for the most part, it's actually really hard to hear them. They're all on the bottom grill down here. I don't know how easy this is to see because I didn't turn on the light. There we go.
Yeah, I can see it.
So you can see them right down here.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I really notice it is if I'm streaming Netflix and the room is really warm. Then the fan sound can be really noticeable because it's really having to crank it up. But other than that, it's fairly ignorable. You can't really hear it if ever. If you're in a reasonable room or even in a cold room, you won't hear the fans at all. So sound is it's good for a small laptop. It's not going to be mind-blowing, oh wow, this is such epic sound that's coming out of this tablet. And you're not going to be able to fill a room with it, or you're going to probably have issues if you're watching Netflix with several friends. You know, the screen and sound isn't really designed for that. It's really designed for one person watching it and listening to it. Otherwise, it comes with headphones, so if you don't like the sound coming out of the speakers, you've got the headphone option. So as far as like just a single person using it, it works just fine. The screen is an anti-glare screen, so I actually did try it out in sunlight because shockingly we did a week ago have sunlight. So so I was able to try it out, and the screen actually, you can actually still see the screen even when the sun is directly shining on it. So that actually was pretty impressive, and it's pretty bright. I mean, it's not a Retina display screen. It's not really high definition, and I guess for me, who's never really had a Retina device, as it were, I'm not going to notice it, but maybe you will if you come off an iPad 4 or iPad Air. You might notice the decrease in screen quality. The viewing angle it's reasonable, but it's not. It's again, it's kind of budget as far as that's concerned. What else could I talk about hardware-wise? So it comes with an HDMI out, which I've never tried. I have no idea if it, really performs poorly when you're doing an HDMI out, but from what I've heard, it works reasonably well. You have a USB 3.0. Again, haven't really tried it because I haven't had a reason to. You also have a USB 2.0. And we're probably going to have to stop this recording if she keeps on barking because she's waking the neighbors. So,
let her in, Tim, if you want. No problem.
Yeah. So let's pause this for a second.
Well, I'll just have to talk amongst myself because you can't really pause these, can you?
No, I guess not. I'll be right back.
So Tim's just gone to fetch his dog in. What can I say? Chromebook, yeah, I'm quite tempted actually. We were very tempted to get one if it wasn't for my mishaps with the USB incident. We may have purchased one because my wife was quite keen on getting one for her work and stuff, and because of the size, and she works in all the stuff she does can be done in Google Docs and things. So it's quite a tempting little device. We'll wait for Tim to talk a little bit about the software side, since we need to discuss that as well. Well, the Hangout has managed to carry on without any issue so far. I don't know what happened before, but basically we had to restart because my my webcam froze. Maybe it's unstable due to the USB incident. It might be slightly unstable. Oh, you're back. I was just saying that if it wasn't for this situation I had, we may have picked one of those up by now, because my wife Laura, she was quite interested in getting one for her, mainly to use, because we homeschool our kids, and she obviously does a lot of research online for things for them to do, and she's been using my old laptop and the old desktop machine before this, and this would have been ideal for her because she'd need it for stuff like that. She also does a little bit of writing and things. She's doing a university degree, and she can do it all in Google Docs basically.
Right.
And she also does a bit of writing for websites and things like sort of freelance. So it would have been quite good. So maybe when we get a bit more cash, we might be picking one of those up. So do you want to tell us a bit about the software and how all that works? I've actually seen one I've actually had a quick play with one, but only for about 5 minutes. So, but it's basically Google Chrome, isn't it?
Yeah, there was one last hardware thing I wanted to talk about. And that was the touchpad. It's been a while since I've actually played with a quote-unquote modern touchpad because the only laptops I've had to deal with are like 5 years old, and touchpads weren't exactly great back then. So maybe it's just my inexperience, but this one is actually really good. I was really surprised at how responsive it is, and how it scrolls to where you want it to go. There's not a lot of fiddling with it that I've noticed on previous touchpads. So I was, for as cheap a laptop as it is, they really did a good job on the touchpad. It is only a single click. There is no distinction between left and right click, but I think that's more Chrome OS than the hardware manufacturer. And the keyboard works as well as I was hoping for. So it's one of those Apple-style keyboards. I can't remember what they call them now.
Chiclet keyboards. Is it a chiclet keyboard or something?
Does
it look like chiclets?
Oh, chiclet, yeah. I thought you said something else. Yeah, it's a chiclet keyboard. Okay. But enough about that. So software-wise, yeah, you're basically just running a full version of Chrome on your laptop. That's really the extent of it. And it's kind of a modified version of Chrome. So I'll just go ahead and show this part anyway, if I can. Maybe this might be a tear.
No, that's okay.
So that's pretty much it. You have Chrome, and then you have that bar along the bottom that looks very Windows style. And if you have the app launcher on Windows at any rate, I think it's also on Mac now. You also have the app launcher, which lets you search and launch apps from it, and you can also pin apps, your most used apps, to the bottom bar there. And then you have a Wi-Fi and battery indicator, and that's about it. You can modify the desktop background. I have it just shuffle through all their background photos for it. But other than that, that's pretty much it. It's just a version of Chrome running on your laptop, and that's really the extent of it. But as much as people like to say, well, that makes it terrible, you're only connected to the internet, there is a lot of offline apps now. You can access your Gmail accounts offline, you can access Google Docs offline. You have a lot of control as far as that's concerned. There's certainly a wealth of apps that run offline now. And yeah, there's a lot more to it than just that, but it is really just essentially Chrome running. What surprised me was that the login information actually uses your Gmail account password, so I was like, oh, okay. And I have a really long password, so I haven't decided whether I want to change that yet or not. Because, it's fine for when I just want to log in to my Gmail every couple of weeks on my desktop, but having log in every time you shut it down, well, I'm not so sure, but oh well.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of an issue, because obviously, especially nowadays, a lot of people have either used LastPass or stuff like that to have really long passwords for stuff. So it's actually making you use your Gmail. It doesn't let you create another, sort of login. It's strange.
Not initially, but I haven't looked into all these settings, so there might be a setting that lets you differentiate, and I would kind of hope there is, but it might be that Google's going with, one password for all of your Google stuff, so they just assume that you're going to want to use that same password you use for your Gmail and your YouTube on this device.
I get it, but it seems a little bit strange because I would guess a lot of people would have long passwords. You won't want to be typing 25 characters into it every time you log in. It'll take longer to do that than for anything to boot up.
But then we just had a article, or at least I saw an article, the top 20 or 50 passwords last year, and password was still on it, so maybe people won't be bothered at all. I mean, that's something to keep in mind. Another difference from Windows is when you have a Hangout message, instead of the little green icon that shows up at your bottom bar or whatever, your top bar, wherever your taskbar is, it's actually the person's avatar on it, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's off to the right, and where everything else is left aligned. And the other, at least I think it's the only Chrome OS software, exclusive software I should say, is the Google Plus Photos app, and that just essentially runs the web browser version of Google Photos, but it also gives you access to like anything you pull off the SD drive or your USB drive or whatever.
Right.
But other than that, it works. It works exactly like the software or the Google Plus Photos app, anyway. But that's the only exclusive Chrome OS software, I believe.
So you can, at the bottom there, there'll be like bookmarks basically that look like apps. So you got your things like Play Store and Google Play and things like that.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. We don't discriminate on this show. We can have dogs. Is she outside?
No, she's inside, so I'm going to see what she's barking about. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. When we said this was going to be a rough edit or a rough show, I didn't think it would be this rough.
I've just said that if anybody's watching this live, surely they've got something better to do. Cause
you would hope so. So,
I have a question about. I was just saying. Basically, I said about the bottom, that sort of the icons at the bottom. I take it they'll be like bookmarks for. For example, you'll have like the Google Play, and you'll have Gmail, and you'll have whatever. They look like apps, but they'll be bookmarks to wherever they are online, basically.
Yeah, for the most part, they are bookmarks, and it's just how it runs in the App Store. You can install the Google Plus app, but it's really just a bookmark to the Google, to Google Plus. I mean, there are some like Google Keep, which are actual apps, and they'll open just like apps on your
Right.
desktop and whatnot. But other than that, yeah, they're mostly glorified bookmarks. And if the file system, as it is really limited. It's just a single folder called Downloads, which every file that you download shows up there. There isn't any real deep customization you can do there. It also integrates with Google Drive, though, so whenever your Google Drive is set up, you have that all on your Chrome OS device.
Right.
So
you don't have access to the file system apart from the downloads folder, so it's quite locked down.
Yeah. With the exemption of Google Drive, whatever you have set up in there, that's pretty much it. There isn't anything else you can do.
I suppose for that sort of device, it's probably all you need really. You don't really need too much. I assume you have access to your photos as well. They'll have been a different. So say you save a photo, or does it all go into the downloads folder?
That's actually a great question.
Has it got a web? Has it got a webcam on there?
Yes, it does have a webcam.
So you could snap photos and possibly there may be that'll go to the Photos app surely, and that might be treated slightly differently.
Yeah, let me do that right now while we're talking. As soon as I can remember how to access the camera. All right, I can just use the Google Plus Photos app. Yeah. Yeah, as far as that's concerned, it is just limited to that, but let me go ahead and take a photo. That is not how you take a photo. I guess you can't. Okay, there is a webcam app, but I just can't remember what it's called. Knowing my luck, I accidentally deleted it or something. Shouldn't be able to do that, but... Oh, Camera. Duh! The app that's called Camera. Accessing your camera.
It was cleverly hidden there.
Yeah. So that is actually, there are a few other sort of exclusive Chrome OS apps like the camera app and the calculator app. So they have kind of basic apps like that. Right. What else do they have? They also have a Get Started page, which actually works pretty well for just showing you everything that your new device can do. Certainly better than anything Windows has ever shown as far as getting started. Yeah, that's about it, actually. There might be some other app that I'm forgetting, but I'm going to go ahead and take a photo, which the photo app has sort of the Instagram Instagram filters. Yeah, it also has a timer. Go figure. That's why I was surprised. But it has different filters like Cinema, Retrofit, 50, 60, Big Jaw, apparently. Yeah, there's a lot of filters. If you're into that sort of thing, I've actually gotten tired of it. So let's actually see where that photo showed up. And okay. Yeah, so the camera app itself handles it within its own little app. It has sort of a little section for it. It's very app-based.
It's a bit like an iPad, isn't it? It's all sandboxed,
Yeah, it kind of seems like that, and I'm willing to bet if I transferred files to it, which actually, as I just remembered, I have this. So I'm going to try that now. This is, again, something else I should have done before doing this.
Hey, live experimentation. That's fine. That's what we're about. This is technology in use.
So I'm actually just going to transfer a random Dropbox folder or file, not folder. Something from camera uploads. Yeah, picture of the puppy who's being really annoying today. Copy it. Okay, and then you checked. And then put it in. And let's see what happens. Which is apparently nothing. Why is that? Did I just miss something, or am I just not looking?
So you're supposed to be able to put files onto a USB stick and transfer them.
Yeah, okay, that's right. So, yeah, it shows up as another tab in the interface of just, this is whatever the name of the USB stick is, and then you just transfer it to the downloads folder. So the downloads folder is just a catch-all for all the separate files that you download or transfer over.
Right.
So it is very sandboxed like the iPad in that respect, but you can still transfer files between each other, I suppose.
But I suppose you can use web portals as well. So if you had, if you had like a server running on a LAN, that gives you access to another hard drive or whatever on that LAN, or or a NAS drive. You could access that and download the files that way as well. So it you know it, it's enough. I think it's enough for what it does. I think it's got enough capability there.
Mm-hmm.
What about printing?
It runs off Google Printing, Google Cloud Printing. So I actually didn't think of trying it just directly with the printer. Let me do that if I can find the USB.
Because that's one thing I did hear, that you can't just plug a printer into it.
Of course, out of all these wires, which one is actually the wire? Oh boy. You can totally tell I'm prepared for this.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That isn't going to be tricky or anything. Randomly pulling on wires and hoping it's the right one is probably the dumbest thing I could ever do.
Well, if you disappear, I'll know why.
Well, that's the speaker wire. Okay, we're going to do this the hard way then. Okay. Plug that in. It's probably not even on, so I'm going to have to take off my headphones. Okay. So a screen pops up saying you can use a classic printer or a cloud-ready printer. Printer. Let's see what that does.
No, so it's recognised that you've plugged the printer in.
Yeah, we're just going to see if we can actually print directly to it, or if we have to...
You never know. It may work. If it's Linux-based, Linux has got a very good support for printers in general. Better than Windows, actually. But I'm sure I read somewhere that it doesn't actually work that way. I think you have to use the Google. You have to use specific printers or the Google service, which actually appeared on my tablet on KitKat. I think KitKat has that as well, and I've got a Google printing.
Yeah. So even with classic printers, I mean, it recognizes that you plugged it in, but you still need to print via Google Cloud Print in order for it to work, or some other service, I'm sure.
So you have to send it up to Google, then it comes back.
Yeah, and it has to be connected to the PC. I didn't even think about that because I just so very rarely print stuff, so that's something I didn't even think about. But that's definitely something to.
Oh well, that's not too bad. If you've got a desktop with a printer connected and Google Chrome, so you can send that to cloud printing and then access that in your Google Chrome on your desktop and print it there. Is that right? Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, I've used it before on I think it was just my phone. It's really not that hard once you have it all set up, and even the setup process isn't that difficult. You just have to get it sort of registered with Cloud Print, and it works just fine. And if you don't want to do it that way, then you can just save it to Dropbox or to Google Drive or whatever, and you can access it on whatever device then. I mean, it's not the greatest solution in my opinion, but it works for what it is.
Well, you've got to remember, this is a $200 device. That's quite a lot, for what you're paying. So is anything? Go on.
No, what was your question?
I was just going to say, is there anything else that comes to mind?
No, not really. It's it's a full version of Chrome. So if you use Chrome, or if you haven't ever used Chrome before and you use Firefox, it's basically like running Firefox, just with Google's little restrictions and whatnot. But I would still use Google Chrome from the desktop version than I would use mobile Chrome any day of the week, because it's just, you don't have the restrictions. It all, you have Flash already installed, you have Adobe Reader already installed in the Chrome application, so that all runs without any quirks or any fuss. You don't have to worry, oh, am I not going to be able to access this website because it didn't properly optimize it for mobile devices? No, you don't have to worry about any of that. So that at least is what I was looking for, because that's why I didn't just buy an Android tablet, because I hate working with the mobile browsers, because they're just so restricted, and I'll run into problems that I really shouldn't on my iPad. But with this device, no, it's like, yeah, you can view this web page, or you can upload this video, or you can do whatever. It's all perfectly fine with us. As far as like app support, I mean, it's kind of mixed as far as like getting true native apps. I don't think that Chrome really cares about it. I think as far as you can access it in whatever way, that's all they really care about, whether that just be through Facebook.com or whatnot. I mean, I have seen like Twitter for Chrome. That there are a lot of apps like Twitter for Chrome, or TweetDeck for Chrome. They all work natively, quote unquote, on the Chrome OS device. That they actually look pretty, look and work pretty good. So there you go. What else? As far as like the keyboard, this is something else I didn't mention. The caps lock key that normally is on Windows is a search button. It's weird. I'm not convinced that that's the greatest substitution to switch out all caps for search, but there is a setting in the device to switch it back to all caps if you don't like the search button being there.
You'd think they'd have switched the super key to the search button. Like the super key, like would be a Windows key on a Mac. On the Mac, it'd be the super key, the Apple key, whatever. You'd think they'd.
Yeah, and I thought I saw on like first gen Chromebooks that they had that as the search key, but it doesn't seem to be what Google wants. There is no super key. It's just Control and Alt. They just got rid of it completely.
Right.
Which could be an issue if you are running on Linux, because you don't have that there anymore. Which, no, I haven't tried dual booting or just running off Linux. I am just way too busy to deal with that right now. The function keys have been changed for escape, back, forward, refresh, full screen, switch apps. So, like, if you have Google Play in the background and like the main Chrome page in the foreground, it'll switch positions. And then it's just brightness and volume and then power button,
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you don't really need function keys on the device. It makes sense to switch it with something a little more usable. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have any other questions?
Not really, but you touched on the fact that there is a way to put Linux on there, and yeah, I can see some people would do that and get themselves a nifty little Linux laptop. I'm not sure if I would do that if I got one. I think I'd probably try and use it as it is for what it is, because if I wanted a decent Linux laptop, I'd buy a less restrictive device, I think, to do it on. Because these days, most, if you avoid a couple of particular manufacturers and configurations, pretty much any laptop will run Linux nicely anyway. It's just a matter of how much you want to spend, like you were saying before. So I don't see And it isn't too complicated to do. And like you said, you can dual. There is a way to dual boot, but I don't know if I would. And I'm a tinkerer. I don't know if I'd bother. I probably would if eventually, because I like to do that. But it's just to see if I could do it. But I don't know. Some people have said the performance, especially with the 2 gig model, isn't fantastic to run like Ubuntu,
and
on Arch and stuff like that, because it's just not. The 4 gig model would be better for that, and some people have gone out looking for the 4 gig model in various places that they can still get it to be able to do that, because you can't upgrade the RAM. It's soldered in, isn't it, on those?
Yeah, it's soldered in. The previous Acer Chromebook allowed you to replace it, but they seem to have gone the soldering method, which I don't agree with, but there you go.
That's the C710, isn't it? Because
C710, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad machine either, and the fact that you can replace the RAM. I know you can replace the SSD in the 720 though. That is possible, isn't it? You can put like a bigger drive in there.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing to consider when you're dual booting Linux, is because it's kind of become its own Chrome OS. There, as I mentioned, the super key is missing. You don't have the F keys anymore. If you depend on those type of keys to run Linux, that might be a little more harder to do. I don't know what the situation is for those who are running it. I'm assuming they've patched in some sort of method to remap the keys and kind of gotten around it. But that is something to consider, is that this very much feels like a Chrome OS device, not a laptop that was just simply rebranded, which is how I viewed the previous Acer model. It was just, this is a device that is rebranded just to see if there's interest. And I think Acer found out, oh, yeah, there is a ton of interest. We should maybe put a little more effort into the next model. It also should be mentioned that there is no Ethernet port, and I think Acer did this to cheat the thinness deal, because the Ethernet port is bigger than the thickness of the Acer book. I got some attachment. I think it's in my toolbox. It is cheap to get it, and you just plug it in. You plug in the Ethernet cord. Everything works. The Chromebook has absolutely no issue with recognizing, oh, that's Ethernet. Yeah, it should work.
Right.
So they aren't restricting you from using that.
Oh, that's not too bad then, because that was a bit of. I remember us talking about that before. It might have been a little bit of a concern, but it sounds like it's not a big problem.
Yeah, and if you need more USB ports, just get a USB hub.
Don't tell to me about USB hubs. I'm not going to do any.
Except for Dan, who probably shouldn't touch one ever again.
I've got plenty of ports on this now. I've got about 6 ports on the back. That's just about enough.
Yeah, it's and just as far as the whole experience, this is a $200 laptop. Let's just let's put that into perspective. This is a $200 laptop. All of my previous complaints kind of fall by the wayside because it is so cheap. But the experience is just really good for how cheap it is, and how, the word I'm looking for is not cutting edge, but how finely it draws the line between, cheapness of the model, but still have it perform well enough. And I think Haswell has a lot to do with that. Just it can just keep on clicking without any problems. You're going to notice slowdowns at times. The experience is not just going to be crystal clear, moving at 100% rate, but for how I've dealt with laptops before with Windows, and the performance makes me just want to go, oh, why am I dealing with this piece of junk that clearly wasn't designed for it? And it's like, maybe it's better with Windows 8 now. I couldn't tell you. I probably will never tell you because I don't want to touch it. But for what it is, I'm just impressed. Acer really put out a really good product for what it is. It's cheap, but for how cheap it is, it looks and feels really good. And I have to give Acer some kudos for that. Yeah, but as I said before, there are restrictions to keep in mind. It is Chrome. You cannot run Thunderbird. You cannot run Firefox. You cannot run basic Windows applications that you might be used to. So that's something to keep in mind. That's actually something that I was like, I don't really like that because I have so many email accounts. I actually have to use a Thunderbird-like program, and there really isn't an alternative on it right now.
I'm
What
wondering though,
else?
what you could do that. You can do the Chrome has got that remote desktop feature.
Oh, yes, I did try that. I just remember that, though. So I did try the remote desktop feature. Uh, yeah, it's just from the Chromebook to the desktop. And as far as being on the same LAN, it worked just fine.
Hmm.
I could access my desktop without any issues. The latency was very low, so I was impressed by that. Couldn't tell you like like if I was in a different wireless network whether it'd be as good. But I've run what was it? That's right. I have run Chrome desktop, the remote desktop to other laptops like back in Tillamook, and the performance was reasonable. It's always kind of hard to say, is it bad programming or is it just the fact that the internet is really slow? Because there are times they would disconnect when I was connected to the other person's laptop, and we'd have to do the reconnecting process again. So it's always hard to say what causes that, and that's certainly an issue. But as far as like just local area, back and forth between the desktop and laptop, it performs just fine, and you can do all the scrolling that you need to do just on the touchpad without any issues. So I was impressed with that part at least. It worked just fine.
Right. Shall we move on to? You want to tell us a little bit about the Chromecast? I suppose
Right.
you've probably used that in conjunction with your Chromebook.
Yeah, I have a little bit, especially when I was running or I was installing Corora. I had to use it because I want to watch Netflix at the same time. That's a little hard when you're installing OSs. So I did get the Chrome OS. That's actually upside down. Nope, that's still.
That's it.
Does that look
That's
right
right.
to you?
Yeah.
Doesn't look right to me. Okay. So I did get that, and I've been trying it out on my left monitor because our TV is old. It does not have HDMI at all. So it would have been nice to have tested it on that, but you work with what you get. Um, so it gives you. So there's still a limited set of apps, though they've said they're going to be expanding that next year. You just setting it up was simple. You plug it in, you go through the instructions on screen, you install the app or the extension for your browser, whether it be on your phone or your Chrome device. That setup process was, no sweat to it, and then all you have to do is just click the little streaming icon on Netflix or YouTube or Google Play, and it just automatically picks it up and everything goes. And as far as that goes, it worked well. It's still very limited. You're still restricted to Google only services or services that have only set up through Google or whatever. Um, my biggest complaint was really that Netflix doesn't let you like queue in episodes. So let's say I wanted to watch the next 5 episodes of Green Arrow. It only lets you do one at a time. So when the episode ends, you have to click for the next episode, and it doesn't just do it automatically, which is kind of surprising because Netflix allows that on so many other devices. The fact that they wouldn't allow it on this, I don't know why. Um,
It might not be Netflix. It might be a limitation of the software on that because you're sending over a particular. Because you've got to deal with the DRM and everything. You're sending over a particular file technically, aren't you? So, you're telling it to get that, fetch it. So it might be to do with that.
And that might be it. But it's just odd to see that when YouTube and Google Play let you queue up music or queue up videos to play next. That is one thing I did notice, though, is if you had more than one person kind of controlling what gets sent out to the Chromecast, it'll just automatically say, okay, I mean, if you don't click, queue, and you just hit play instead, it'll just say, okay, we'll just play that immediately. It doesn't just queue it up. And I would be more, I would think you'd want to have it more queue instead of just automatically play whatever's next. So that could be a slight issue to consider. The device does get a bit warm, which is a bit interesting. I just, I've had it plugged in the monitor all day, and you definitely feel a bit of warmth off of it. And it has a little light by the Chrome logo. Obviously, I can't show you because the only way you can... Or wait, no, I can show you. No, maybe. No, the cord's not long enough. It does come with a cord to plug into power, and it's long enough for just that, just to get to the TV and whatnot. What else? Yeah, other than that, it works just fine as far as just doing simple streaming, but if you want local media of any kind, or you don't want to use YouTube or whatever, it's going to be really restrictive as far as that goes. So that's something to keep in mind when you're using the Chromecast. But yeah, streaming from my Chromebook or whatever worked just fine. Never had any issues with it.
It's it's $35. It's a Google device. You got to expect it's going to work for Google products and whatever you can stream, and it'll basically stream anything you can stream off a website, won't it? So
it does, but I didn't personally try it out, but I've heard mixed opinions on streaming from tabs. Sometimes it works, but sometimes the performance just isn't up to par. It is beta, so
yeah.
Streaming from a tab could be a bit flaky, depending.
But there's good use cases. Say you're traveling and you're in a hotel room. You've got a laptop. You want to watch Netflix. How much easier is it just to plug that into the TV? And then stream it via your laptop or whatever. So. For the price, it's a good little device to travel with and things like that, isn't it? So
yeah, as long as everyone has an HDMI capable, and I seriously considered, I could get an HDMI to VGA converter, but I looked at the Amazon reviews and everyone's
expensive.
Well, yeah, that's the first problem. They're really expensive, but they're also... what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. They're expensive, and they seem to be kind of iffy on performance. So I was like, no, I'd much rather... Not to mention, it's also a full screen, not a wide screen. So I was thinking, man, I'll bet that'll cause problems too. So I was like, no, let's just wait for us to get a newer TV, which, eventually that TV is going to die. We've had it for so many years. I'm actually surprised it hasn't died yet, but there you go.
Yep. Right. You want to tell? Oh, I think we've got a bit of Linux stuff to quickly cover to see where you got up to. Well, I forgot where were you up to last time you were going to test, or were you testing Solid K by then? I can't even remember. Before Christmas, and I know you had some issues with the NVIDIA drivers and the Optimus, whatever it is, the Optimus drivers for NVIDIA.
Actually, the Optimus drivers are for laptops, not desktops. I did look that up, and it's like, oh, that's laptop drivers. I don't know why I'd be using those.
Right.
Yeah, apparently there's some brand of NVIDIA that doesn't quite work well with open source. Oh.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's something to do with that series. It's quite complicated.
No, I think I was on Solid DK when we last talked, because the transition from Solid to Mint to what I'm on now was pretty fast, and I think it was during that time when we were away. Anyway, so I was on SolidDK, and I was enjoying it, but I was having just these little niggling problems, especially with the NVIDIA drivers. So when I updated it, it caused the operating system just have a freak out. So I'm like, okay, let's just try Linux Mint and try the latest Linux Mint 16. That kind of worked until I tried updating the drivers, and then it freaked out. So I'm more inclined to think that was actually user error, because I cannot believe that every single person who has a 600 series NVIDIA card is having issues on Mint. Otherwise, I think I would have found more about it. Clearly, there are issues with the NVIDIA drivers, but I don't think it's just because I think part of it is user error. So I was like, okay, you suggested Crora, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a look, see if it's worth trying. And it's like, okay, I looked through the websites, like, okay, let's get the mission statements, look through and see what they're doing. It's like, okay, I can dig this, and installed it, and yeah, I updated the drivers to the latest beta drivers. I think it's 3.3.1 now, and haven't had any sort of freak out or anything along those lines. Everything just installed and has been running well since.
Yeah, it's
So
weird. It's weird because I know when I had issues, like when I got this new hardware, I was running when I was running elementary OS. It was just too new. Uh, the hardware came out after 12.04 Ubuntu came, which it was what it's based on, was released. So it was just too new to deal with it, and I had to upgrade kernel. I had to upgrade the Xorg configuration and the server for that, and then and the graphics drivers and everything like that. Because what would happen is I'd play a video and the whole thing would freak out. It would just go slow or freeze, and then it'd take about 10 minutes to get out of the video, But after I updated everything, it was working. The problem is because I didn't see the point of being on a distro that was based on an older system where if you had older hardware, it wouldn't be a problem at all, because I was running it before and had no issues at all with my older hardware. But if I'm going to be on newer hardware that needs a newer kernel and newer drivers and everything, I may as well be on a newer one and then have to mess about and make some sort of Frankenstein version of this distribution, because it's based on what it's based on for a reason, because they've got a particular goal to achieve. They want stability and aesthetics, look, and everything like that. And if I'm going to be changing that anyway, I may as well go on to a newer version. So that's why I went back to Ubuntu, and I'm pretty happy with it. And partly because I want to follow where they're going to see, just test around, see what the new things they're bringing out when they upgrade. So I want to stay sort of current with that, because I've tried, I've been on so many different distributions over the years, and I always sort of go back to the Debian-based ones, and I seem to feel more comfortable there. So that's why I stayed there. But your issue was weird. Like I said, it is a user error thing, because I have not heard of anybody with having those major problems that you had on two different distributions.
yeah, I did my due diligence of looking through forums and looking through all the issues, but one, that was a lot of digging through stuff that wasn't necessarily relevant to my problem, and two, I think it was mostly just user error. I was doing something wrong in the process, or I wasn't uninstalling a driver or something. I don't know what it was, and maybe just being on an up-to-date kernel with the type of card I have was required. It's really hard to say at this point without doing even more researching, but I don't want to do that right now.
No, so Fedoras tend to stay quite new with kernels and packages. So, and as well, a bit like Ubuntu isn't too far behind.
Yeah, and yeah, I haven't had any. I haven't had any really issues, any big issues to speak of. I mean, the only thing I'm missing is new Vola player that is on Debian-based installations, and I think it's on a few others, but it's not on Arch. I'm sorry, not Arch, Fedora. And that's the only thing I'm missing, because that lets me control Google Music through it,
Oh, right.
through the keyboard. But I haven't found an alternative on Chrome yet, and I haven't really looked hard enough either. So who knows when I'll figure that out. But that's about the only thing I'm missing. Otherwise, everything's there that I want and need. Now my focus is on, figuring out how to record games and figuring out how to edit them and get them into reasonably good-looking videos, which I've got the recording done down, and I actually now can live stream to Twitch off my Linux partition due to a program called Simple Screen Recorder. So that's actually really, really good to find that out. The editing part's going to be the hard part, because I'm switching from Vegas to OpenShot at this point. I think OpenShot's the one I'm going to go with, unless you have any others I should look at.
I'd say OpenShot, definitely. It's probably the furthest along. It is an area where Linux is sadly lacking, and it probably will be for quite a while, because it's commercial software. Is always going to be further ahead in multimedia, because just how they work. People will pay for that sort of software, for good quality software. But OpenShot, for considering it's all free, open source, voluntary software. People working it in their own time. It's you can't beat it, really. And
I'm looking forward to the 2.0 update. I've been following them for a while now, and that 2.0 update is looking really nice, and especially having it on Windows 2, if I could just not have to deal with Vegas ever again, I will be happy. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it's coming out in March, though, so I have to deal with Vegas in the meantime, just because I still have to do some recording off Windows and some live streaming off Windows. And that's because Portal 2 hasn't come over to Linux yet, and I don't know why. Other than that,
I can't see it being much longer.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just something they just haven't gotten around to it, or they're still tweaking it a bit. That's my main focus on the main machine, is just to get that part going, because I haven't been doing any recording lately other than a bit of Portal 2, and there's a few series I kind of want to try out that aren't Let's Plays. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But the hardest part is going to be the editing process, because I'm moving from Vegas, which I'm very familiar with, to OpenShot, which is kind of like, what, where, what, huh? Ah! I mean, yeah. I did do a quick video on Google Plus just to see, okay, I can do at least most of everything that I was doing on Vegas. Just it was really sloppy, though, because quick video. There's one thing I haven't tried yet that I could do on Vegas, but I'm pretty sure I can do that, which is just doing video in video, and I'm sure that's doable. I just haven't looked into it. I've got other priorities right now, but that's the major thing I want to work on, is getting OpenShot, kind of just learning OpenShot and getting used to that, because I'd much rather use something other than Vegas. Vegas just has way too many issues. It's not supported, obviously, anymore, because I have an old version. And if I can actively support a project like OpenShot, that to me, I just want to do that more, because then I can, say, hey, look, this is an issue. Maybe you should look at getting that fixed, and then they'll say, okay, we'll look at that. And I think just having that interaction with a piece of software like that would be really nice to have. Rather than dealing with some commercial product which says, yeah, we don't really care, we're not really going to fix that anytime soon, whatever. Yeah,
it's interesting you talked about these apps that you're using and Simple Screen Recorder. I'd seen that before. I put on the notes here about Voca Screen, because I've used that before, and I've recently been playing with it, and I've got some really good results from it. I think I tried Simple Screen Recorder before, but for some reason it didn't do it for me. It could have been because the system was too old and it couldn't handle it, because I know I had issues. I might try that again, but VocoScreen is another pretty decent capture software, and it's pretty good. You know, I don't know what sort of features Simple Screen has got, but with this one, you know, you've got the sort of standard. You can capture full screen. You can capture windows. You can capture screen and your webcam. It does. You can also record multiple audio sources as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I can take, you know, a monitor of the on screen, you know, the PC audio, and as well as my mics if I want to do some sort of like tutorial. Is it similar to that sort of thing?
Yeah, it sounds very similar to that. I'm gonna have to look up VocoScreen later just to see. But yeah, it at least lets you record microphone and your or second audio source. I haven't tried more than 2 audio sources. Lets you record full window or set fixed area, or even lets you record the OpenGL application itself. But that's pretty experimental, and from what he said, it's kind of quirky. And if you use it while playing multiplayer games, you may get banned because of how it injects code into the game, which some games may, you know, they have those anti-cheat systems, so they might just ban you for using it. So it's a bit quirky as far as that's concerned. But, you know, other than that, yeah, I could stream to Twitch with the instructions on the website rather, you know, easier than I thought it would be. I don't know if I can do some of the advanced features that other streamers have yet. That's something I haven't tried out yet. But
so how does the Twitch thing work then? Is it send it? You know, how does it work?
So essentially, when you have the program up, there's a page that says save to blank. You know, you can save it to somewhere in your hard drive. What you do is instead you save it to this server name, and then you add your own Twitch key to it, whatever that is. And then so instead of saving it to your computer, it's just sending it out, and then you just have to set up all the little settings that Twitch demands, and you know, it's all on the website. So I was able to stream a game to it without any issues. Yeah, so it's not very hard, but you do have to go through the instructions.
If I remember rightly, Twitch is it's live. It's sort of live streaming, isn't it? It's not like it doesn't archive things, does it? It necessarily.
It temporarily archives stuff. Yeah. Gives you, like, I think it's only a couple of days nowadays to save your streams, and then that's it. So
Can you retrieve the stream back off it if you wanted to do something with it, or say download your stream, or?
Yes, you can.
Right. No, it's quite interesting. I don't think the VocoScreen is set up for that. It's a lot more to do with keeping the stream, you know, keeping it local, and it's got lots of different settings for different types of encoding. Like you can encode to MKV, AVI, things like that, and I think it's more to do with that. So it's probably got a different use case to Simple Screen Recorder. But yeah, I'll check it out. I think because I'm you know, it's maybe not something I'm going to be doing, but it might be useful to use for you know, other you know, streaming things other than to Twitch or to other services and things. It might be quite come in handy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna check out VocoScreen, just see how it's come along. I don't know if you can record your webcam with Simple Screen, so that might be one feature that isn't there. But as far as I can tell, the developer behind Simple Screen is really into it and keeps it trucking along at a nice pace. So I'm sure, and if he keeps working on it, it'll be really nice in a year or so. But for what it is right now, it works well. I was really surprised it could stream to Twitch, because it doesn't give you any indication of that unless you go to the website. Obviously, then it says, hey, you can stream here. But the app itself won't necessarily indicate that. So that was a nice little surprise to find out.
Yeah. I've got a couple more down here that I've been messing with. I've got there's like a webcam because I've been looking at sort of the video stuff, and because I was thinking if this didn't work with Google Hangouts, is there a way to capture this stream somehow? And you can there's different ways of doing things, but so I was looking at maybe using Voco Screen to capture the window, but it looked like I was getting quite a lot of latency. And then I was looking at other things, so I stumbled across GTK Plus UVC Viewer, very catchy name, which is basically a slightly better webcam sort of recorder than things you can get sort of in distros like Cheese is sort of the basic one that Ubuntu comes in the Ubuntu App Store. But UVC Viewer, this GTK Plus UVC Viewer, is a little bit better. You can, there's all sorts of different settings for it and quality, and you can change the quality of your image and things like that. And it seemed quite nice for if you wanted to do some sort of presentation or do a video comment to a podcast or whatever. It's quite nice. You can get it at least on Ubuntu-based distros. It's in the repositories, but you can get like a PPA which as well that will give you a more up-to-date version. And I'm not sure if it's available for. Let me have a look. Here it is. I think it is available for other distros. Let's have a look. Binaries. Oh no, it's very Debian centric. This one. Yeah, it's all Debian, all Deb files, which is strange. It's annoying when they do that because there are other distributions. You can get the source code, and there's like the Git. You can get to the Git repositories, and you could probably compile it. It's like you were saying for that that media player you wanted. You could probably compile that from source.
I have tried it, but I'm not. I don't have a really good experience with compiling source code like that, so I probably need someone who is experienced to kind of walk me through it. But yeah,
have a look at one thing you can have a look at is what's it called? You know the distribution OpenSUSE. They do. They have there is a service they provide which will convert binaries from one format to another. So it might be worth looking at that. I can't remember what it's called. So, for example, you could give it a deb file and it'll convert it to an RPM, which is what you would use on Corora.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be worth looking at that, and I can't remember what it's called now. But you can convert files over. Let me see if I can find it on here. Yeah, convert deb to RPM. Yeah, it's Alien. That's it. Yeah, it's called Alien. So you might. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to get it for Fedora. But RPM. They use RPMs as well as Fedora. So let me see. So I'm looking. It's called Alien. Yes. So you can get it for. Package for Ubuntu. Oh, well, that's clever. There's an Ubuntu version, but it's not the other way around.
Alien converter between the RPM, DPKG, Stampede SLP, and yeah. So
that's the one. Yeah.
That's on Fedora.
Yeah. So if you can get that for Fedora, if you can install that, you should be. It might. It doesn't work with everything, but if the app is simple enough, it might be able to pull the dependencies in and do it for you.
That's the trick, though. This one's a little bit complex to all the streaming services it has to cover for. But
Well,
yeah.
as long as there's no missing dependencies, then you're fine. Because as long as the packages are available, it'll translate that for you and repackage it, and you'll be fine. There's not a lot of difference between the way they work. It's just how they're packaged, really. It's worth a
Hmm.
go. Worth a go.
Yep. So yeah, I've been busy with all of that, everything we talked about. Uh, I guess as a side note, I've installed Pure Arch on the side machine just because I wanted to get experienced with that and kind of deal. I want to force myself to get used to the command line. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, and certainly it's not mine because every time I see the terminal or command or Windows command deal pop up, I'm like, ah! Um, IT guy, and I still freak out about that.
Yeah, it's
But
it's it's quite challenging, isn't it, to installing Arch from scratch?
yeah, just installing it. I mean, the wiki. Once I found the correct wiki,
Yeah, you
I,
go?
I
You didn't
went.
go to the beginners, did you? You went to the wrong one. There's
I
a
went to
beginners wiki.
experienced, and I'm like,
Mm.
what? What? Huh? What the? And yeah. So I went to the wrong guide, which is my fault, not Arch's fault. And then it wasn't too bad. It's it's a different process though compared to just installing Ubuntu and whatever. So I've
Yeah.
got it up to the command line interface, and I was looking at installing Own Cloud and Mumble Server and stuff like that, but I didn't get any farther than that, and that'll probably be a few more weeks before I get to that because I've got other priorities that I need to work on, like taxes. Yay.
Yeah, it's worth having a mess around with Arch. I personally, I've done it. I've installed Arch from scratch, and I got all the way up to having a desktop environment and everything, and I got all that installed. Uh, Personally, for me, it doesn't really appeal to me having that much control over everything. Some people love it. I think you'd probably enjoy it once you get yourself to the point where you're installing the desktop and everything, because if you like, you quite like KDE, so and that's very much something you can sort of customize everything about. I'm not that bothered. I'd rather have a functioning desktop and not too worried about every single detail.
Hmm.
And it's good to know how to do it. The good thing about Arch is if you can do it, then at least you know how to solve problems a lot easier. But and it also it's bleeding edge, so you've got a lot of bleeding edge software, and access to all of that. And then there's the Arch user repositories, which have it's like a scripting system which will allow you to compile software. It basically automates compilation of software that isn't already available for Arch. I found it touch and go. I tried it and I tried using it, and a lot of the time I'd have dependency problems and stuff like that. And I thought, I don't need this. I just need things to work. So for me, I didn't. It wasn't for me. And even Arch-based distros like Manjaro and what's the other one, Antergos, which are quite good, which get you straight in there without having to mess around. You're still having to deal with all of that, once you're installing software. So you know, whatever floats your boat. But for me, I'm much happier with something I know, and I keep going back to Debian-based stuff because I just know how to use the command line on there, and I know how to get extra things on there without having to mess around. So give me Debian or Ubuntu, I'm
Hmm.
happy. So, but that's the beauty of Linux. Like I always say, there's choice and different things for whatever you want. So you can never go wrong, really. There's always a choice.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up the desktop thing because I was surprised when I went to Crore. It's like we have 4 different desktops you can choose from. I'm like, wow, that is pretty significant. Or was it? Yeah, it was 4.
Yeah, I think you
Um,
get XFCE, you get Cinnamon, KDE, and GNOME 3, I believe. And
yeah,
obviously, you could probably have more if you wanted them. But they're the ones that they ship with.
yeah. And I thought about KDE, which I'll probably go back to KDE on the next time I reinstall Linux, because this not being a rolling release, I will have to do that sometime down the road and probably switch back to that. But I wanted to work with Cinnamon for the time being, just because I knew that would work and I could get it up and running without too many issues. I know if I went back to KDE, though, it would probably be on a rolling release or something like that, so every reinstall would require a complete reset on my setup. So KDE, though, when I used it on SolidDK, was actually quite a bit of fun to work with.
Yeah, I think on Fedora-based distributions, there is an upgrade path, so I wouldn't worry too much. It is a bit fiddly with Fedora because you have to make sure you're up to date. If you're not up to date, it could break. So you make sure you're totally up to date before you do the upgrade. So do like normal package upgrades first, and then upgrade the whole thing. Whereas Ubuntu-based, when you do it on Ubuntu, it does it for you. It upgrades all the packages first, and then upgrades the distribution. So it's a little bit counterintuitive on the Fedora-based ones, but it is possible. And Ubuntu is brilliant for upgrades. I know a guy who's upgraded for 5 years. He's never reinstalled. He's gone up, and he's had not many issues at all. And I think he eventually wiped it and started again. But there's debates in the community whether they should go, clean installation or upgrade. It's a bit like Windows. There's always been that debate. You should never upgrade Windows, but there's probably a good reason for that with Windows. But Macs, you can upgrade a Mac. You can, if it's going to be broken, it's already broken, isn't it? So.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if I was going to stick with Aurora anyway, so I wanted to go with a more simple desktop. And Cinnamon I like more than GNOME. I tried GNOME once, and
GNOME needs a lot of work in terms of you need to customize it a lot to get it to work the way you want. You have to have a lot of widgets and things like that. And to me, I don't have time for that. I just want. That's why I liked Elementary, the Pantheon desktop, which is so simple. You've got all, at the top you've got all your apps there. You've got the dock at the bottom with your main apps, and it's easy to install stuff, and that's all you need really. That's why I don't mind using Unity once you've customized it. It makes a big difference when you make the icons a little bit smaller. Actually, let me have a look if I can. Should be able to show you on this, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I'm not a really big fan of Unity. My issues with canonical side, I don't really like the interface setup. I mean, it works, but that's about it. Yikes.
All right, can you
Three
see
versions of me.
Can you see it there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
That is a really nice desktop.
It's not bad, is it? It's quite nice. Once it's smaller like that, I find it a lot easier to work with. Right, let me get you back. Oh, I lost you somewhere.
There's another issue. Oh, I think no. Yeah, I never liked how it hides file and edit and all those sort of different tabs. That always annoyed me. I know it's kind of like a visual thing that Ubuntu likes, but it's like you're just hiding it for no reason until I scroll over it. And,
you mean the global menu? Right, yeah. Yeah, I'd rather have up the top like tabs of like open apps, but they do that on quite a few different desktops now, and it's not the best. That's why I like XFCE. I can't speak. I've been up for hours. So.
And we are getting on to like 2.5 hours. So
yeah. So yeah, I think we've pretty much covered. Unless you've got something else you wanted to.
No, I think it's time we wrap this up. I applaud anyone who's listened to us and watched us for 2.5 hours.
I think I don't know what I've done here, but I think I've disabled the the switching. You know, like it switches not. I don't know how I've done it now. I've disabled the. You know when it switches when you talk. So when one person talks,
Oh,
it comes up. I've disabled that now. I don't know how I've done it. You're always on the screen now. I'm not sure how to get you back. How to get it back to where it
click
was.
on your name.
On my if I click on mine, then I end up with me on the screen all the time, even when you're talking.
Okay, no. So you click on your name and then click on it again to get rid of the blue outline.
Ah, got you. Right, that's it. We're back. Yeah, because that handles the switching for the video, so I didn't want to leave that off. Right, so it's been fun. So hopefully people will get to see this video at some point. A form of it, and the really curious ones will be going onto my YouTube and watching it. I hope I've got adverts on there. I can't remember.
Oh no, that means you're gonna get a copyright claim, which I've gotten again.
I'll probably get a copyright claim for Rick Moyer's music.
Yeah, probably from CD Baby now.
And I'll have to get a letter off him. But yeah, thank you, Rick, by the way, for providing the music. I always not always, but I usually forget to thank him at the end of the show. But yeah, Rick Moyer, MoyerMultimedia.com did our theme tune, and he can do some for you as well. He's a very talented guy. Tim, where can we find you, or lurking around, or what you're up to online apart from this?
So you can find me on my brand new website, kingisaaclinkster.com. Woohoo!
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention that, did we? You basically transferred your WordPress blog to your own domain, haven't you now?
Mm-hmm. Yep, my own self-hosted blog, so I've got that running, and yeah, I'm really excited about that. I've got ads up now. So yay, you guys get to deal with that when you read my blog. But I'll keep it reasonable. The website is nowhere near complete. I've just got, again, other priorities to work on right now. So you can follow me there. You can follow me at Twitter. No. You can follow me at Google Plus at google.com/Timothy Wetzel, I think. I'm going to double check that.
Plus Timothy Wetzel, I think, will take you there if you just do a search.
Yeah, so plus Timothy Wetzel. You can also follow me at YouTube at youtube.com/KingIsaacLinkser, and you can also find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/KingIsaacLinkser. I will be streaming regularly now, in addition to everything else that's going on, because I don't have enough to do with my time. What else? No, that's pretty much the important stuff for now. So definitely check out my website in a few weeks when it's fixed. It's usable, but there are some issues I need to iron out. Yeah, that's about it.
Great, and you can obviously find us and this show and various other things at dangelous.com. If you go there, or dangelous.com/technocratic, takes you straight to the technocratic stuff. But if you just go to dangelous.com, that'll give you some other things like my Twitter and Google Plus and things like that. But I'm plus Daniel Vieira on Google Plus. But if you're watching this uncut feed, then you probably already know that. YouTube.com/technocratic will hopefully be hosting this video. Twitter at Dangelous and various other places. But if you go to dangelous.com, it gets you everything you need to know. If you want to send us any feedback, you can always email us as well at podcast@dangelous.com and let us know what you think of our adventures in video. Okay, I think that'll probably do it before I fall asleep, because I've been up since it's nearly 11 p.m. here. I've been up since about 4:45 in the morning, so I'm about ready to go to bed. Thank you very much, Tim, for this experimental episode of TeknoCratik. I've really enjoyed it.
It'll be interesting to see what's in
Yeah, and I've actually got to learn
post-release.
how to use OpenShot, and it might be out in about 6 months. So,
Yay!
right, you take care.
All right, you too, and thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.